Hey, so I finally decided to get around to recording the second part of this series. I think I recorded the first part like a month ago or something, so maybe won't be the most regular series of Yomi strategy, but what can I say? I'm lazy. So this is the second part of the set I played with Oka. Again, a while ago now. Um, I decided. Oh, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but I decided to play switch to Midori after I lost the first game against his Setsuki. The first game was Setsuki versus DeGray. So I didn't know this player at all. I figured he might just be Setsuki, you know, quick matching Setsuki, and so I figured, well, I want to level up my Midori in quick match. I'll go ahead and play the supposed counter pick to Setsuki. I say supposed because there's like getting to be more and more evidence that it's not really a counter pick. It might be even at best. But anyway, that's kind of a discussion for another time. I feel pretty comfortable at playing Midori. I think I'm pretty good with Midori, although I have played some sets recently against I Am Nobody's Trock, and he has pointed out some things that I was doing there um, that I think are actually valid. So I'm not, expert level Midori. Um, I do what I can. So I was not happy at all, though, to see that Oka switched to Zane because Zane is one of those characters who's just super good, and it doesn't really matter if a noob is playing Zane; he can still just wreck house. It's just, it's similar. Zane is similar to Setsuki in that way. I mean, both of them have that potential to just mash and win. Um, so I definitely was not happy to see him play Zane. You'll see my first play here is just a straight up mistake. I think I mentioned in the thread I thought there was a lot of good play on both sides in this whole set, but not always. I think that some of the stuff I did was just bad. And this is one of those things that was just bad. I led off with the only queen in my hand. Queen is just so good in this matchup that you really need to be able to threaten it in knockdown situations. And so blowing it on the first turn, especially even if it hit, I would have to spend a I wouldn't have to, but I would spend a glimpse and probably my jack. I mean, for 22 because you take 22 damage when you can get it, but that's a lot of cards. I'd be left at like a small hand. So like if he blocks it, it's terrible. If it hits, it's not even that good. It's just really bad. I think that in general, Midori wants to start off his games blocking and building a hand because that's how Midori wins. Is he gets a lot of cards and then just lets her rip and does a gajillion damage. Um, Zane can do a gajillion damage. He doesn't need cards, you know, like Setsuki. But this was a really bad start, and but I was impressed by this. I was impressed by the block from Zane because a lot of new players with Zane will just go ham and they'll just press buttons. Throw turn one is a pretty common play even against grapplers. Um, so yeah, I was impressed. It just shows me that like, hey, maybe this guy knows what he's doing, and I already had some evidence to that with the first game against his Setsuki. I thought he did some good things. So I have evidence now that this Zane is not just a maniac and is going to just like push buttons. I thought that my hand is pretty terrible at this point. I really need to card. I need some cards, so I just decided to block. Uh, that's all there is to it. I could have. I mean, it's just so scary playing against Zane in pretty much all situations because he has such dominant combat reveals. I mean, yes, it's throw is not dominant against Midori. Well, it actually is in this case because I have nothing in hand. But of course, against grapplers, Zane's throw is not dominant. But it's still effective. It's still scary because, first of all, Midori in particular needs. I mean, all grapplers are going to be doing a fair amount of blocking, so you're in a position where throw is kind of good. It kind of weights throw more heavily from Zane. Zane's throws do a ton more damage than the grappler's throws generally do. And yes, so you have a dominant throw option as a grappler, but if you run into an attack, you take a crap ton of damage and a knockdown from Zane. And really, the only answer Midori has to knockdown is that Q that I just wasted, basically. So it's scary to block, because if you're playing good Zane, they know that the way that you get in, the way that you win this matchup is to build a hand. But my hand is just so terrible that maybe if I had a read on the guy, I would six attack. But I just decided to go for the block, and I get thrown. That's not that surprising. He gets pretty good shenanigans. Any shenanigans with a 9 in it, pretty good. You can't always draw jacks in your shenanigans. And yep, he has the jack. I decided not to use the joker there because I have such terrible wake-up options that I kind of needed at least one. It was a little risky because if he had played a 4 here, then I probably would have had, I could have very well had even worse wake-up options. I could have had no joker and nothing. I would just have to guess right with a block. But it's pretty rare for Zanes to use the 4 unless you've shown that you probably have a strong hand, and you do that by powering up. Generally, if you power up for a lot of aces, that's a good opportunity for them to use their 4 and discombobulate your whole hand and whatnot. So I saved it for knockdown. It worked. That's what I play. Goes for the even mix-up. So now I have aces. Still, my hand is kind of garbage. Like, yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate that sometimes you're stuck with 5 dodges in hand. That kind of happens with both Midori, and it does happen with Troc sometimes too. So at this point, I decide to go for the safest option in my hand. It becomes less and less likely that the Zane player is going to block in general, the more cards he has in his hand. 8 is plenty for a Zane player, certainly. Of course, I always have to be wary of the 2, because 2 beats my jack. But, I don't know, maybe if I wanted to attack, maybe the big 7 normal would have been better here, because he's probably not going to be playing lots of queens or attacks that aren't 2. So maybe the 7 would be good, and that would leave me with a normal draw and more options, but I just decided to go a little safe-er and just play the jack and say, hey, stop throwing me, please. Please stop. I glimpse it, and this is kind of a questionable play, especially questionable play on my end, especially with the face down there. I decide to just play into the face down. Yeah, I'm not sure how much I like that play. Could have very well been a joker in that situation. And if it was a joker, I'd be in a terrible situation. Just terrible. Even now, I'm not in a great situation. I have 4 dodges and a normal in my hand. My hand is total garbage. I can't threaten anything, really. So I think I should have just let that rip, kept the aces for a rainy day. But, I'm typically of the school of do as much damage as possible, when you can. Alright, so after that, let's see. I don't have the best of hands. I think I decided to block here because, well, because I need cards, and because I figure, I mean, he's been so throw heavy that he might want to mix it up. I'm just kind of just hoping he mixes it up at this point. Um, I have no good counter throw options. Maybe maybe he wants to play his two now, so I just decided to try to get some cards, and it doesn't work out for me. I mean, what he's doing is good. I haven't shown that I'm willing to big press big normals, and he should be thinking like, well, okay, if he's just gonna be, if he doesn't have a queen, because if he had a queen last turn, he probably would have played it instead of the jack. So sure, I'll get hit by another jack. Um, he's gonna deplete his hand if he lands the jack attack, and I'll still be in a good position. So I should just keep throwing. I mean, it's smart, it works, and he got the gift from shenanigans, which always helps. Just plays right into it. I guess he didn't want to deplete his hand too much. Okay, and at this point, I think I just have to block and pray that he plays a even mix-up, because I'm not sure he's the kind of Zane player who will um, throw your knockdown when he senses that you don't have great options. Again, he suspects I don't have a queen because I would have played it earlier. So if he throws me, or if he plays an odd normal, then such is life. I just have to eat it. But I get kind of lucky. I win combat. Life is good, but not that good, because my hand is still kind of shit. Queens are so dominant in this matchup that you want them always. I decided to go into dragon form here. I don't know if this is a good play or not, really. But I figured, I think that I can play the mix-up here. The mix-up here is throw block, because I have the king, and if I do block an attack successfully, then then I get my queen back. So I decided to keep king here, and I don't think that was the best decision. I think it works a lot against a lot of new players, because it's kind of just, it's a scary to attack into a Midori, for A, because he might play his queen, B, because I could block and I could fetch a queen from the discard. Both of these are super terrible for Zane. Okay, so I decide to pressure him, and throw is kind of heavily favored here, because from Zane, because of course, if he suspects I don't have a queen, he's going to, again, not want to attack into a block. If he suspects that my hand is not that great, which he kind of should at this point, throw is pretty good, because that knocks me out of dragon form, and you get the damage. So I guess that's what I was thinking at this point. But maybe I should have respected the fact. I think it's fine to king throw here from as me. But I think I should have respected the fact that he realizes my hand is not good, or I should say, he realizes my hand does not have a queen in it, and so 2 attack is pretty good, because it beats the dragon jack. So that's what he does. He plays 2. Again, I think both plays are fine here. But obviously I'm not loving life right now. I just spent my only dragon form move, and then he throws me out of dragon form. One of the joys of playing Zane as Midori is that he can just throw you for free. Any combat reveal, essentially, is going to knock you out of dragon form. And at this point, this is where I ask him whose alt he is. Because this kind of thing, it's not brilliant, it's just what you should do in this situation where you play into a throw. Um, it just shows that he has awareness of the matchup. Okay? And he did some things as Setsuki that showed that he had awareness of the matchup, that he knows these characters pretty well. And to me, that's just weird to have somebody who I've never heard of or seen before have strong awareness and making smart plays for two characters. Essentially, he has a pretty good handle on two characters in the game, and that's just like, well, it generally takes people some time to build up, um, you know, a good solid foundation and awareness for multiple characters in the game. So I became skeptical at this point. I asked him whose alt he was, and okay, and then there's the creator and destroyer too. I don't know how good that was, honestly. I mean, if he thinks my hand is not good, then he's just making my hand better by playing that card. So I don't know how I feel about that. He asks me what I meant by alt, and I just decided to drop it. I'm kind of steaming at this point. Tilt, it's a real thing for me. I decided Dragon Form again, same logic. I can play the throw mix-up. I actually think this is... So, this is where... it was the last turn where I asked him whose alt he was, but this combat reveal kind of really made me believe it, that he was an alt. And of course now, I don't think he actually is, but this combat reveal was just kind of blew my mind a little bit, because at this point, I think King is really strong for me, and I play a King. You can, I'd be interested to hear, if people think differently, but I think King is a really strong combat reveal here, because he just banished, what was it, six cards from my deck. I only had one queen in discard, so he grabbed 6 more from the deck. Chances are pretty decent that I just picked up a queen. Don't ask me to do the mental math right now. You can do that at home. Maybe it's not that good, actually. But I felt like the chances of me picking up a queen here, pretty good. And the fact that he's been so aggressive so far, queen is just kind of, you slam it down most of the time in these situations. So I wanted to play. At this point, I respect his play. And I think, well, I'm just going to... Is he going to attack into Dragon Form twice in a row? Probably not. So I feel like King was a super strong combat reveal for me. And this is actually kind of interesting. Like, I would want to hear people's opinions on this. But I would play King here 100% against people who I feel are good at the game. I just feel like, again, because of... It's just so good. I guess the only thing you have to be worried about is Zane King, because if Zane does suspect that you're going to queen him, then King is a pretty good combat reveal. It's not the best trade for Zane, but it is at the same time, because you get a knockdown. But I just feel like these things were weighted so heavily in my favor that King is just like a no-brainer. And so I play it, and he thinks for a long time with this combat reveal. And this is what he comes up with. 7 normal. And I'm losing my mind at this point. I'm like, did you really just 7 normal me? It's so unsafe. I mean, he had to have had a read on the king throw there, because it's just and it's not one of those things where people are just where he was just going ham, he wanted to be super aggressive. I could tell that he put a lot of thought into that combat reveal because he knows it's unsafe. So it was just a hard read that worked really well, and it felt like, my soul was getting owned there, and I'm getting a call. this is good. Can I? It's too bad I can't edit video. I could, but I don't really know how to do it. All right. So yeah, I felt like this guy is just what? It happens sometimes. You have the feeling where people just know everything you're gonna do, and at that point you generally don't win. It's kind of hard to get out of that tailspin. So I take 20 damage, get knocked out of dragon form. Now what? Now essentially I kind of lose. I have to make a ton of right guesses in a row, and Zane has some really good options to counter a lot of what I can do in neutral, not in dragon form. So, I mean, this is a bad spot. I think I make a good play here. I think I block because I noticed that it's like, hey, there's there haven't been that many kings in discard, and I just felt king. It was just a read, and I blocked it, and I was right. So I'm kind of getting myself just very slightly back in the game here. I mean, if I can get myself back up to like 10 plus cards in hand and draw draw another dragon form or some glimpses, which at this point is kind of unlikely actually. I should be powering up for aces to unlock some of those glimpses from the bottom of my deck. But I guess I don't think about that. And at this point, I think I decide to block again. I don't know why, but I thought he might have another king in hand. This is the flip side of reads. Yeah, sometimes they work really well in your favor. Sometimes they're just dumb. Like sometimes they hurt you. Sometimes you should just do smart things instead of relying on reads. But honestly, I don't know what the smart thing is to do in this situation. This is tough. I mean, I just have to win a bunch of combats in a row. I could do a 7 normal combat reveal and just put my balls on the table and say, hey, take, what would that be, 31? Hey, take 31. If he didn't have a joker. But I just knew I had to, the easiest way to get back in the game at this point is to block. And so I decided to go for a block. Turns out, I should have flipped the card the other way. Would have worked out better for me. And I just die. But again, it's tough to come back from situations where you just feel like your opponent's just reading your mind and you can't do anything right. And that was definitely one of those. That was one of those games, and he won this one pretty convincingly. And at this point, because Midori is a character I'm trying to get to Grandmaster, and I still am. I was trying at this point also. I was really tilted and just really angry. There's a competition on Yomi as who's the saltiest man on the forums. I think it was probably Raziek before he left, but now it's kind of a 3-way tie between me, I Am Nobody, and Master Blaster. Just a quick, just to get you guys caught up on my whole Yomi career up to this point. I'm not proud of this necessarily, but hey, maybe you'll think it's funny. I don't know. But I played this game in 2011, and I was pretty good at it. I picked up Setsuki. I realized once I came back to it that I made a lot of probably made a lot of mistakes back when I was playing it in 2011. I played it for about 6 months, played in some tournaments, got pretty high up the leaderboard, had some fun with it, and then started like losing in quick match. I went on like a horrible stretch of losing, and I got so mad that I punched a hole in my wall and decided that I shouldn't play Yomi anymore. So I took a 4 year break from Yomi and kind of got my head right. That's what I was doing the whole time, just getting my head right, just preparing to come back to Yomi. And I think I'm better. I'm definitely better than I was, but I am a very very salty person. I've seen outbursts from those other two guys that I mentioned too, and I think it's pretty good. It's a pretty good competition. I don't know who wins, but right now I'm just like out of my mind, kind of. And I see that Oka opened up a casual game after this win, and so I decide to go and play my main and go after him with all I've got. Just kind of play Setsuki and beat his ass. So that was the goal. Uh, didn't quite work out. But you'll have to see kind of how those games go. Um, those games I might have more to say about because I have much more familiarity with Setsuki than either Midori or DeGray. But yeah, so the next time I do this series, who knows when it'll be. Uh, we'll get into that little mini set. All right. Thanks for watching, and let me know what I can do better. What if you got anything out of this? If you want to hear more stories about how much of an insane asshole I am, then that's good too. All right. See ya later.